People always ask how I balance my family life with 400 shows a year. I'm just doing what I love with the people I love. It's my magic life.
I like Wes Iseli. I like everything about him.
All right, well, I've been looking forward to this one. I didn't know if it was going to happen or not because we were playing phone tag and everything was happening. But this week we have a comedy magician on here. His name is Craig Diamond. He's from Florida and full-time pro, super funny dude. Every time I see him at a magic convention, he's got a crowd of people around him and they're all laughing their butts off. And you always have a fun time around him or near him or even on the phone with him. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's Craig Diamond.
Hey, Wes. Hello, Wes. Hello, Natalie. And hello, everybody out there in podcast world. Great to be with you today, Wes.
Dude, thank you for doing this with me. This is, I know this is going to be awesome because we did a little pre-interview thing and I said, all right, just a couple minutes. And I think we were on the phone for an hour and 20 minutes. And I had to interrupt you to get my points across because you were just, whoo, gone. Shot out of a rocket. I love it.
Hey, Wes, you know what? In a way, that's what's so nice with me being bound up with this COVID thing. And any of us, you talk to any career ship path, okay? And we'll all tell you that, we love what we do and all that, and the perks and all that. It's all great, the travel, the performing, but probably the biggest treat is sitting at breakfast or lunch with the other act and just yakking. Just talking, sharing the war stories, and just doing what you and I have been doing just as we were getting ready to do this, and what we'll do for through the course of this program. But any of us that have that's what we all miss. That's what we love. So I'm like a bull coming out of the gate for this. I can't wait. All right?
This is awesome. I was talking to a friend of mine, Rob Allen, on a podcast a couple weeks ago, and I said, and it's also different if you're talking to a full-timer or a hobbyist. It's a whole different conversation, and I can't really explain it. And the hobbyist might take offense to that, but it's just, you've been in a war together. You've had thousands of people in your audiences. You're not just performing for your husband, your wife, or your friends next door. We've been through the foxholes together, and it's just, I don't know, it brings out different conversations. So
it does, and I always, to the semi-pro or the highly skilled amateur and everything, for all that, you're right. There's just something with the working, and I don't mean that to come across as an arrogant thing or nothing or whatever, but there's just something that comes with it because of the venues that you're involved with, or the marketing that you're involved with, or you know what I mean, all of that. And once it becomes a real job, it's just different. I look at magic differently now. Over the course of my life and career,
100%
job compared to what it was in the early days of magic with me. My mentality is entirely different because it's not a hobby, it's a job, and that changes too.
Right? Yeah. But
don't you think?
Go ahead.
I said, don't you think?
Absolutely. That's what I don't want, because I've said it twice on my podcast now that it's just different with a full-time pro than a hobbyist. I don't want any hobbyists thinking we're saying anything negative.
Absolutely not.
I have hobbyists come over to my house and I can play magic and show them card tricks and session with them for days. But it's a different conversation with a pro. That's all.
Completely.
Yeah.
Completely. Hey, I'll sit at a magic event. I'll have a guy that's an amateur, and he'll blow me away on the card stuff. You know what I mean? It's okay. This is great or whatever. But there's no 60-minute show. There's no concept of entertaining. And I don't mean that in a negative way. But they don't have to worry about that. That's not the thing.
Right.
And it was like that for me at one time too. So yes.
So you've made your bones in the cruise ship industry. 99% of your shows is cruise ship. What would you think?
Well, I would say, we're in the high 90s over the course of the. I came out of the. I saw that. Let's see, about age 5, I saw the Houdini movie with Tony Curtis and Janet Leigh. And we talked earlier in our pre-thing about Houdini and the promo machine that he had. So there you are. You're talking about a movie that was made just a little over 25 years after his death. Hollywood takes on a real Hollywood version of it, but it didn't matter. I was 5 or 6 when I saw that movie, and that's what lit my fire. All right.
Wow.
So it was Magic Kid at Christmas. And then I really jumped into it. I mean, I really got heavily involved. It wasn't just Magic Kitty stuff, you know. It was for something I don't know why. I just boom. You know, and I grew up on a chicken farm, so it wasn't like anybody in my family was in show business. I wasn't surrounded by that in any way. So by the time I was in my teens, I had a full structured show. And I was competing. I was every year competing in the SAM or IBM conventions from '73 on, I think. So getting to know the magicians and the guys that were in that, and the national conventions and that, and of course MAS. As I think 14, I was involved at a pretty high level with MAS, and then once I got my driver's license, I was catching the end of the Poconos and the Catskills and the Playboy clubs. So all that was going on, and what we called the boiler room shows, for the promo boiler room tours that were happening in those days, the phone tours, getting all that, and that was all starting to change. And all of a sudden, I got my first ship gig. And I did Atlantic. I started to do a couple Atlantic City gigs. I did some Vegas stuff at that point with some name as an opening act for some names. So I was getting all that experience. And then I got my first ship offer contract, and it was a 9-month run.
Wow, your first time out.
First time out, 9
wow.
month run. Yeah, I walk into the guy that became my manager. So there was a Magic Dinner Theater operation in the suburbs of D.C. It was in Rockville, Maryland, and then they opened up in Fairfax, Virginia. It was called the Great Houdini, and it was a Magic Dinner Theater concept. Okay.
What year are we talking?
1983.
Wow.
Okay, 1980, and they wanted to go. Their idea was they were going to franchise probably, and it was going to be really big. James Randi, the Amazing Randy, was their main guy, and involved with marketing. He was Tico Bonomo, the guy behind Bonomo Turkish Taffy Family Air, was the guy involved. He was the money and the guy behind all Houdini. And Elaine New was a teenage magician working close up there.
Yeah.
Then. So at any rate, I got a call last minute to come in to do the opening preview show with Randy. Okay, and next thing happens, they kind of I came in and offered a flash act, you know, birds, a little quick audience, fun comedy, and then a nice pop illusion. I think I did the Mike's, Adam Owens mic suspension. And then Randy came on, and it was great. It was the Amazing Randy. It was great, and it was a mentalism act, and pacing just didn't work in his favor in that show. So the investors that saw that show ended up actually wanting to go with what I was doing more so than what Randy was doing. So they put Randy in a more of a kind of like a main feature promotional thing, because you know he was a big, and of course is and was the name, you know. So but I found myself, this just landed kind of on my lap, and suddenly I became the opening for Houdini and the 2 operations and all of that. And right as that was in the midst of all that, I get a call from a New York manager, a very well-known showbiz manager. He had been president of the American Guild of Variety Artists for 20 years, one of the biggest movers and shakers in the New York entertainment scene. And if you were in that business and in that scene, you knew who this guy was, all right? And I get a call. I'm home on the farm, and I get a call from this guy, and wants to know, you know, hey, he's heard good things about me. Can I come into the city to have a meeting? And so I did the usual. Let me see, Jackie. Let me have a look at the book.
Fake it till you make it.
I could have been out the door, you know, in 2 minutes. You know, I'm going. I even made sure he could hear me turning pages. You know. So, I think it was a Monday morning phone call or whatever, and and I didn't want to sound too, literally, I could have been saying, okay, I'm on my way to Harrisburg, get on the train now, or I'll take a Trailways bus. I'll be there in 9 hours, But no, so I said, it'll work. I can take the train up on Thursday, I think I said. So his office was in the Carnegie building on the umpteenth floor, and as I walk in his office. And it was one of those deals where the elevator door opens and you are right into his office, okay? And it's pictures of him with every famous person you can possibly think of on the wall. From showbiz, movies, television, and politics, presidents, all that, just around the world, okay? And my mouth is hanging to the floor as I'm trying not, I'm soaking it up, but trying not to act like I really felt. And he is on the speakerphone, motions for me to sit down. He's on the speakerphone with Vic Damone. Now, there may be a lot of people listening that don't know who Vic Damone was.
I guarantee my wife doesn't know.
Vic Damone was a huge singer, a radio recording star, TV star in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. The Frank Sinatra era, okay? He was of that ilk, Vic Damone. And so he's on a speakerphone with Vic Damone, and Vic Damone's wife was Diane Carroll, who was the first black actress on television with the show Julia in the 1960s, and she was on Dynasty in the 80s. Forget who else. Well, at any rate, so I walk in, and he's on the speakerphone with Vic Damone and Diane Carroll negotiating a date for them to fly to Hong Kong for the QE2 for a one-nighter.
Wow. Okay? Wow.
And I'm hearing the money and the deal and all this, and Jackie's motioning for me to sit down in front of him, and Vic is kind of him-hawing around on taking the date, and I'm drooling because I'm hearing what money's being offered, and I can't believe this is what? I'm hearing this, and I can't believe it. I'm hearing Vic Damone go, well, whatever, and I hear the guy that's going to be my manager lean into the speakerphone and tell Vic Damone to go take a physic, and that he's going to call Tony Martin. Now, Tony Martin's another of that era. Tony Martin was the singer in The Godfather that the horse's head got put in the guy's bed to make sure that he got the job. Okay, that the actor that played that singing role was Tony Martin, another Sinatra era type of singer. So anyway, I hear this go on. And he says, Vic, go take a physic. I'm calling Tony Martin. Click, phone's off, and he reaches over and says, Craig, nice to meet you. So I'm like, yeah.
You'll take whatever he gives you.
Oh my God. Okay. So next thing I know, I'm getting offered a date for the QE. Okay. And I can't do it because it's going to happen so quick. I can't get I'm a bird at that point. I have birds in the show, and then the birds were a big part of my show then. I can't get the permits in time to travel with the birds. That was my introduction to what it's going to take to travel internationally with birds. All right? I never had to think or deal with that before, So that didn't happen. And he says, don't worry, kid, I'll have something else for you. And heck, a week later, calls me up and he says, can I block you out for the next 9 months?
Wow.
I go, where am I going? He says, well, we're flying you down to Miami next Saturday. If you can do it, he says, you got a week to get the bird permits. Can you do that? And I said, I'll get working on it. And had it done. Next thing you know, a week later, I'm my sister and myself are flying to Miami and getting on my first cruise ship ever for a 9-month contract. And, I expected coming off that I'd get back into doing, I'd go back to Atlantic City or Vegas with some shows or different review work that I'd been in, the Boiler Room show. I thought I'd just pick up that and came off that literally already had it before that run was over. I knew where else I was going because of Jackie. I'd signed over with management with him. I didn't worry about anything from that point on. He had the dates, and it went from one ship to another, an occasional opening, with a name. But it got more and more just ship, which is what he was plugged into. And at that time in the 80s, there was a company that basically had a monopoly within the industry, the entire industry. and Jackie Bright was the manager, by the way. You keep hearing me say Jackie, and it was Jackie Bright Productions. And Wes, and Natalie, if you watch the TV show Friends, and your listening audience, if you watch the show Friends that everybody loved, at the end, you'll see at credits the production company is Bright Kaufman Crane at the end of that.
Wow, yeah, Natalie's shaking her head. She loves Friends. She knows.
All right, well, at the end, you'll see Bright Kaufman Crane comes up. That Bright is Kevin S. Bright, and that is Jackie Bright's son. So his father was my manager for years.
That's awesome.
And Jackie, in the late 70s to all through the 80s, was probably more plugged into the cruise industry than almost anybody in show business. So if you got into his stable, basically you were set. If you wanted it. Some people didn't want that. Some people got out in the ships, and either you're only doing you're only performing one. If it's a 1-week cruise, you're only doing your main night, one night. That's it. And then maybe a small spot on a variety show. Maybe. All right? Maybe it's just one night. You're not working every night. And some people can't handle that downtime.
So when you got this deal, how old were you?
23.
Wow. Well, that's fantastic, man.
Yeah, 20, and then if you would have asked me then, okay, Craig, 32 years from now, this is what you're going to be doing for 42 weeks a year, 36 weeks a year, 50 weeks a year, whatever, for the next 32 years, can you believe it? Heck no. But
yeah.
That's, yeah.
Yeah, Natalie's shrugging her shoulders over here. I mean, one night a week and you get your paycheck and you're good to go. Downtime.
I don't see a problem with that. Not at all.
Well, see, I didn't either, Natalie. But there are. I'll tell you who tends to have. If you're a comedian coming out of the comedy club circuit and you're used to working your material every night, okay, in a way you almost need that, okay. And some magicians feel they've got to be working every night. If you come. The magicians that would have issues, or maybe not get into it so much, where if you get guys that came at that point, they were pretty heavily into the review work, where they're used to working one show a night, sometimes 2 shows a night in a review, and you're only dark one night a week, so you're really pumping out the shows. And if you get into that as on your energy level and that you need that or whatever, then those are the guys that, you get out on a ship and it's like, oh my God, I can't wait till the night I'm working, and you can't, all of a sudden you're done, you got another week till it's that, and you can only sit at the beach for so long, and I don't care what's on the menu and whatever, and I'm not real fond of being around people all day long and blah, 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 then it's not your scene,
Well, 400 shows a year is what we were averaging pre-pandemic. Then you get 3 months off and somebody books a gig. I mean, I'm watching video footage and actually taking the show out and redoing everything just to make sure I remember the lines. Because everything becomes just muscle memory. And when you don't flex that muscle for 3 months, does that muscle even work anymore? How bad has it atrophied? I was freaking out, and show started, people laughed. It was like nothing ever happened.
I was going to ask.
Which surprised me.
You answered that. I was going to say it's like riding a bike.
It surprised me because lines coming back to me, and if you can start a sentence in your script, the rest of it just flows. It's just.
Wes, I worried about that because I took my mother passed away unexpectedly in 2011, and we didn't want to. And a year later, when it was time that my dad needed help. Here's the irony. I literally went out on a new company deal, an offer for a new contract. Get home, and it was a trial thing. And my agent said, it's probably something that'll take a little while till they want to put you in the roster. And literally, I get home that night, and the next morning the phone's ringing, and the offers are there. They want me to start immediately at the end of that week, and basically, write my own ticket. And that morning, my wife says to me, hey, while you were gone, this and such took place with your dad. We got to make this decision, and blah, 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 blah. So that was the moment I chose more or less to walk away from the career full-time for about 3.5 years. Became a 24/7 caregiver, my wife and I, with my dad. I did a couple dates for the first 2 years. I did about three. I think I did two 1-week cruise dates that I was able to get out for, maybe like a one-nighter that I flew in and out somewhere for. But otherwise, that was it. And then the last year of that, absolutely no performing at all. And then because of going through that, it took me a while to kind of think funny again and get my groove back and everything. So it took about 6 months until I started taking dates and going back at and going back out again. And I was worried. I thought the same thing. I'd taken so much time off. I thought, how is this going to affect me? Is this going to be like? But buddy, it wasn't. It was just like what you experienced.
Did you have video footage and audio footage you could go back and refer to though?
Oh, I had tons of it.
Yeah, I mean that's the main thing. Just the little lines.
I didn't even do that though.
Oh wow.
I didn't even do that. It just felt. I'm weird, Wes. I'm one of those guys. Turn the light. I mean, I'm one of those guys. You can practice all you want, and I do. But at the same time, I'm one of those ones. I'm a lot better. Just turn the lights and camera on and let me go. I'm kind of. So the idea of no matter what I would have worked on and thought of ahead of time, no matter what, the way my brain kicks in when those lights are on and I'm out, it's hard to explain.
Well, I mean, like when I was on Penn and Teller, he challenged me. That wasn't set up or anything. And well, stand up and play the game. That's spontaneity. That's spontaneous, right?
How'd your heart feel?
I was totally fine because I know how the trick works. I'm good to go. Let's play. I'm ready to rock and roll. But here's the other thing. I'm worried about taglines. As a stand-up comedian, that little tagline makes a difference. And it's not rehearsing the tricks. But when I pick up the wand, I say this. That's why I had to pull out the props. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Of course it does.
Yeah, so that's really what I was. It wasn't about the tricks. I've done the tricks a million times. No, but it was just the tagline.
Or you'll forget a line. A line just out of the blue gets dropped once or twice.
And that kills me.
And suddenly it's gone. And then you'll see a video or an audio or something, 6 months, a year, 2 years later, and go, oh my God, that was a great line. What happened to that? I'm not doing that now. And then, of course, it's back in again.
Right. Yep. So, and if I drive home and I get a flashback that I forgot to say that line, the drive home sucks because I'm just beating myself up the whole ride home. And the audience doesn't know. That's what I have Natalie for. She's like, Wes, the audience, they loved this show. It was fine. Yeah, but I forgot that line. Imagine how much better it would have been with that one line.
Walkers are for that. I mentioned in our pre-show interview. Now, my wife's been retired from the show since about 2005 or so, somewhere about that now, actually. But she would always, after just about every show, she would have a couple notes on a notepad, always on a follow-up to a line that I did, or an addition to, or hey, when you did this would have been funny if you said this, or whatever, and the notes, and the vast majority of those were gold. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. So what about in the cruise ships? I mean, 30 years in the cruise ships. How many years did you say it was?
32.
32 years in the cruise ships. What about bad weather stories? You got any bad weather stories?
Oh my God. Well, especially good old QE2 days. Now for those that don't know, the Queen Elizabeth II was a true ocean liner, okay? And there's a little bit of difference between a cruise ship and an ocean liner and how they're constructed, all right? An ocean liner is built for the heavy seas, world cruising. Their hulls are reinforced. They've got a deeper draft. And there are not many ocean liners around today. They're not built. Cruise ships are a more shallow draft. There's a slight difference in them. And the Queen Elizabeth II was one of the last of the great ocean liners. And in the summertime, her normal run would be regular 6-day runs back and forth from New York to Southampton, England, 6-day crossings. And because you're not going anywhere, the ships that's your destination basically. So generally each crossing was a theme. All right, so you'd have Hollywood, Broadway, big band, British comedy. It would just ballroom, whatever. There's one theme after another for all these crossings, which really made it interesting when you were on, because I'd be on with, I'd be having rubbing elbows with John Cleese, and cocktail parties with David Bowie, and having lunch with Frank McCourt, the author of Angela's Ashes, and having dinner with the actor Ben Kingsley, and
wow.
Cocktails with Helen Gurley Brown, the Cosmopolitan editor, and I could go on and on and on about that, as far as, because that's what that was like, back then. But because of being the QE and on those summer routes, and because of how she was so famous, and now summertime is hurricane season, and there are times, it's like, all right, they can't outrun it, or because it's that particular ship, we're just going to plow right through it. And the worst we were ever on that was we were in 50-foot seas. That was the worst we were in.
I can't imagine. I cannot imagine 50 foot.
Yeah, 50 foot. Now, that was so bad that when the bow would come up and go back in, the stern with the propellers would come out of the water.
Oh my gosh.
So it actually come out of the water and then come back and dig in. And that was real. Now, you couldn't do anything. Nobody was eating. No one was going anywhere. No one was. No one. You can't sit on a chair.
Everybody's just walking around with life jackets on, I imagine.
Actually, you don't walk around like that. When you're in that, no one's out walking. You can't walk.
I'm saying you'd be strapped up in a life jacket in your room then.
You got your panicky people that are literally sitting in their rooms in their life jackets.
I guarantee it.
Yeah. Now I wasn't sitting in my room afraid, because I knew it was the good old QE2 and everything. But now I had a dear friend of mine, a chief engineer from Cunard Line, and he's now a staff lead, I think, for Windstar. He was on the QE when they were hit with a 90-foot wave. 90 or 95-foot wave.
My gosh.
That hit them from the front. A rogue wave came out of nowhere.
90 foot.
And hit the front and opened the bow up like an envelope.
No.
Split the steel and everything.
My gosh.
Yeah. And in May of '85, I was doing a run. It's kind of like the New York, it's kind of the Bermuda Triangle run. I was doing New York down to Bermuda, down to Nassau, back to New York run. Okay. And that was on Home Lines, on the Oceanic, when it was with Home Lines. And we left Bermuda a little early to head to Nassau because there was a hurricane coming, and we wanted to get out, get away with it. And it was about 11 o'clock at night, and I was having a drink at the bar in the disco, talking to a casino manager that was a friend of mine. And we were in moderate seas, nothing to write home about. And as we were talking, the ship goes into a list, starts leaning. And we went over till we're both hanging on to the bar stools, all right? And, we went over, I think it was like 37 degrees. And that might not sound like a lot, but on a ship that's, 10 stories high or whatever, that's a lot.
Oh.
And I forget, that's right at the borderline where they said whether they come back up or not. You hit a certain, point or whatever, and we upright and everything okay, but we got hit by a rogue wave that hit us broadside, that came out of nowhere, and did that. So so those are now I have friends that were on a ship that the old Princeton Dam caught on fire in the Gulf of Alaska in I think 81 or 82, summer of 81 or 82, and went down. Actually went down. And I have a singer friend of mine that was actually performing on that ship, and was in one of the lifeboats. And
I'm just sitting here. I'm not saying anything. I'm just sitting here shaking my head with my mouth wide open. I can't imagine. Oh my gosh.
Now, all that being said, I gotta tell you, in all my years, I've really not. And all that being said, I've never not felt unsafe. I really haven't. Knowing how well they handle things. We all get in a car and drive every day. We all do whatever, so there's always that element. So I got to say, on a ship, there was one time we were on a seaborne ship, and they were called the yachts of Seabourn. They're little, okay? And I love them because they're high-end luxury, and I love that market. I'm spoiled. I like that market. But we were doing a run from, we were going from Bangkok to Hong Kong. With a stop in Vietnam in the middle, and we hit a typhoon coming out of out of Thailand en route to Vietnam, and then hit a second one as we were crossing the South China Sea to Hong Kong.
As if one's not enough.
Oh my! And I got to tell you, I did have the life jackets out. Okay, I will have to tell you on that one. I did have the showroom, the windows in the showroom. The band behind you there's a curtain behind the band, but if they open the curtain, it's all glass showing out, with a view out onto the deck and everything. They were blown out. That whole they were blown out with water.
Wow.
Coming over there, they had a jacuzzi out on the bow built in. That was blown. That was taken away. So so there are those, and I'll end this on a different note. When we talk about horror stories, my wife and I were on the QE2 one day out of Southampton, headed to New York when 9/11 happened, and we're headed to we're headed to New York City, and because of the time zone change, we had CNN on in the room. And we were getting ready for lunch. Lunch was about ready to be finished, and all this started to unfold live on television.
How far away were you from New York?
4 days.
Wow.
4 days, and you lose in those days. At that time, back then, you'd lose your broadcast signal for 2 of those 6 days that you were crossing. So we had news for 2 days as this was happening. We had news for 1 day. All right, and then we lost signal for 2 days. So we were getting updates via the captain. There were updates literally from the mayor's office in New York that was being sent to the QE because they were still saying the QE is supposed to still come to New York City. Well, at the end of the day, they didn't. They rerouted us to Boston at that point. But that's one of those, never forget where you were and whatever. Yeah.
Wow.
The QE2, here's an interesting cruise thing story. The QE2, because she was subsidized, she was, there was nothing more British representing Britain than the Queen Elizabeth II ocean liner. And in the days of the IRA issues, she was a status symbol. So she was always a target. So that ship always had very, very unknown, not normally known security by the usual lay person. You didn't know how much security that particular ship happened to have.
So help me. What's the IRA thing? What does that stand for?
Irish Republican Army.
Okay. Yeah.
Back in the days when before the peace thing got settled with the Irish Republican Army and England, there was quite a campaign to, that's when there were a lot of bombings that would go off in England, and the Northern Ireland thing, and thank God that's all over and done. I think that got settled in the late 90s or whatever, but there were 20 years or more that was at any rate the QE was a target. They would have SAS. SAS is the equivalent of like our Navy SEALs. SAS is kind of Britain's equivalent of the SEALs. But they would have SAS guys, at different ports under the ship, making sure that the mines weren't being put on the ship in port, and that kind of stuff. Yeah, and people never knew that. You didn't know that kind of stuff went on. So.
Wow.
My point was, I was on the QE2, and if you had to be on a ship on something like 9/11, all considering, we felt no matter where we were going or whatever, we kind of felt okay. I guess that's what was my point. So.
Well, I was just asking disaster stories, bad weather, thinking, all right, he'll tell me a story or two about bad weather. I need a drink. It's 3 p.m. You stress me out. Oh my gosh, we got to change the subject. My hands are sweating.
I think it was last September into October. I went out for like a week run on with Regent 7 Seas on the Navigator, and I love that shit. That's a gorgeous, really very very high end. It just really, really, there's just nothing wrong with it, and it's probably my favorite little showroom in the world to work. Just a gorgeous showroom, just perfect. And I kept getting extended one trip turned into like 4 or 5. It was just great. It was just wonderful all the way all the way around. But my last week that I extended, or the last cruise, was the end of the New England cruise season. The summer cruise season. And when I say summer, we're into fall at this point. Okay, now we're into fall foliage, and it's getting cold up there now. And it was one of the earliest of the earliest nor'easters that came through that year. And so this was last, not this October, but October a year ago. Okay, so I'm up there, and there were 2 days that damn storm came through, that all the cruise ships in that whole region, we had to take safe shelter. And we had, all the ports got canceled that we were headed to, and we all found little coves and little things that the ships just basically went and sat in for 2 days to get the heck out of where we would have been. So yeah.
Wow.
There you go.
Well, I started this thing by saying how great you are, how awesome you are, comedy magician, funny dude, and for 20 minutes you've told me depressing stories and 90-foot waves, and we got to turn this thing around. Listen. So you told me in the pre-show thing interview that I did with you, you said, just ask me about the nude cruise. I'm hoping this is funny.
Okay.
I'm hoping this is funny. We need to change things around. My palms are sweaty here.
This is because Wes would have been one of those people.
Cruise experience. And now this happens while I'm taking care of my dad. I get a call from my agent, and she says, and I have a great agent. I've been with her for my gosh, since like 1992 now. And she's the wife of a dear entertainer friend of mine. My wife and I help play matchmaker and get them together and everything. So when she started an agency, I went over to her, and it was just great. So she calls me, and she says, and this is why I'm taking care of Dad, and I'm not really taking that much work, and she says, hey, there's a request for you, and my bread and butter account for 32 years has been Holland America Line. And they said, hey, a request, even the company wants you for a charter cruise. And that's always kind of a big deal, because a charter means a company has basically rented that ship for that week. All right, it's that company's ship for the week. They're doing, so it's either it's a sales incentive that the company's won or whatever. Okay, but they're usually pretty big deals. They might be, in the past, Bill Gates charters a ship, or the king Sultan of Brunei will charter the ship for a way. So you never know what
Right.
the charter's going to be. So and I'm the requested entertainer. You bet. I am so proud and honored. Yes, I will be available for this charter cruise. And then phone call immediately after, and she said, hey, I forgot to tell you, it's the nude cruise. And
Gulp.
no issues with that. And she says her husband's done it, not a big deal. And I said, oh, that's the charter. And I said, yeah, okay, all right. And I've heard, you don't work in the industry without hearing about the infamous nude cruises and what they are. It's a charter company. They're nudists, and they charter either resorts or cruise ships for their week or whatever, and they take it over, and it is what it is. All right, it's it's bare bones cruising, So I said, yeah. Now I don't have to be undressed. All right, you're performing. When you're doing your show, you're normal. All right, but be aware that your audience, and on whatever you know about working on a ship or living on a ship or cruising on a ship, just think about what that normally is like, but just realize that none of these people are going to have clothes on.
I'm thinking turn the lights up in my eyes extra hard because I do not want to be distracted. That's what I'm thinking.
Well, listen, this gave me about a 15-minute stand-up bit that I do in my show that turned into gold, and it's basically just relating. I mean, it's 90% of what I do in the bit is actually just true telling of actually what happened, what went on, and the stories that went on. Because this is true. I swear, I thought when you do the cruise, I had an image that it was going to be. First of all, I'll have to back up because Holland America has a traditional following of an older clientele. All right, in the cruise industry, there are certain companies that cater to a younger, more wild crowd, and certain companies that cater to a more elderly or sophisticated or laid-back type of crowd.
Okay, turn the lights up 10% brighter now, please.
Yeah.
Even brighter.
Okay. Holland America has the reputation for catering, and they've tried to change over the years the marketing, but they still cater to an older audience. They tend to. They have that reputation, all right. But okay, so now I'm on a 7-day charter, new cruise. That's not going to have any effect. I'm thinking this is going to be equal parts GQ magazine and Victoria's Secret catalog, and sure enough, I show up and it's Holland America, and it's instead it's equal parts National Geographic and Senior Living. I mean, it's, you know, and the only difference is they're naked, and the only difference is not only they're naked, but they're coming down the hallway on a scooter at you.
Oh, geez.
You know, so yeah, so that was an interesting. You know, they always say, you know, you've heard this, that if you're if you're nervous, visualize your audience naked. That's supposed to be a psychological thing. I don't understand that at all, but that's always been a thing. That's been a thing in showbiz.
Right.
And I learned that does not work when your audience is already naked. Okay.
And now it really doesn't work on you because you have flashbacks when you picture your audience.
Oh my God, I have post-traumatic stress disorder. I'll tell you, Mike. No show has ever been the same. Put it this way, I'm doing now. You'll know now. Our audience won't know, but you'll know when I say I'm doing Kyber Cobra. Okay, so it's an audience participation effect where I'm getting a member of the audience out of the up on stage to help me with something, and that's the way any of the audience participation is. Anybody I'm getting up on stage is naked. Okay, and so the guy comes up to help me with this trick, and he's naked, except he's got a freaking bow tie on around his neck, and now I swear to God, I'm not making this up, and a bow tie around his you-know-what, okay?
Wow.
And that bow tie, in the southern hemisphere, has a battery pack on, so it's blinking, okay? Lights.
Right? As if people weren't looking in his direction enough.
That's right. This has to blink, okay? So, and not only, by the way, multicolor blinking, too, okay?
Wow.
So he comes up on stage, and I let it. People are laughing as he's coming up across the stage, and I just let that settle in for a few seconds, and then I look at the bow tie, and I just said, "Oh, I didn't realize it was a formal night." Okay, that was my opening line to him. You know. So that broke the ice with them and whatever. But you talk about distracting.
Wow.
And trying to get it, and now it's not that I didn't know this was going to be this way. Now, do you know the what they call the human xylophone routine? Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
All right. So for the audience out there,
Did you do that with the nude cruise?
Yes. I thought it would be great.
Oh gosh.
And I'll be honest with you, it was death. I mean, now there's an example. You think of one thing. What one thing couldn't work better than that, and it really didn't. It was almost too much.
So the human xylophone, everybody has a musical instrument in front of them. The xylophone, each person has a chord, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, it's a wind chime hung on the end of a cord, and each wind chime is different length. So you got everybody standing there hanging with a metal wind chime hanging angled by a leather cord, and a wood spoon mallet to hit the thing on my direction, and we play a tune. All right, so this thing is dangling. You know, one guy go to handle the mallet, and I go, actually, you don't even need that. It would lines like that. But yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was in the funny things of what happened. So now,
my first introduction to you was meeting you at MAES, and everybody was saying how great you were, but I didn't know you from the cruise ship market. I never saw you on a cruise, and because you're out to sea, I mean, I wasn't friends with you on Facebook. I didn't know if you had a Facebook account back then, but I knew nothing about you at all. But we go back to the hospitality suite, and you have a crowd of people around you. I don't know what nationality background you are. I'm Italian, so I talk with my hands. You were flailing like you were talking with an orchestra. Your hands were moving back and forth, and everybody was laughing, and you had a complete circle around you. And I couldn't get into the circle because the crowd was so thick around you. And I just heard something about a bear. and everybody was laughing so hard. You have to tell my wife this story.
Okay. So, for whatever reason, and I think it's changed over the years, but when you get into the summer season and cruising and you do the Alaska runs, your demographic and your audience and crowd for Alaska always was a little different, a little more outdoorsy, a little more adventurous because of what, you know what it is. So, it's my show night, and I'm doing my Bill and Lemon, and even though, by the way, ships are cashless, you don't carry money, you just sign everything. I've never given up the Bill and Lemon. I still hit him with $100 bill request, and 95% of the time I still get a $100 bill. It's amazing, but I do. So this guy, but you know, I it's not like 10 people are offering me, you know. So when one person offers it, I got to go with it. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm asking for the $100 bill, and this guy, and he's pretty close to the front row, and you can't see the lights are on you. You know the type of lighting, you can't see your audience at all until this guy comes up on stage, and as he's coming up the steps onto stage, and I can actually see him, he's in a red flannel shirt and jeans and has a baseball cap on, and he looks like he's been in a really bad bar fight. I mean, he looks like he was on the bad end of a pool cue or something. I mean, he looks a little rough. And rough enough that I even made some kind of probably slightly inappropriate ad-lib even. Like I'm not quite sure, because it was like, whoa, whatever. So anyways, get him up on stage. Now, in my Bill and Lemon routine, for a certain reason, years ago, I developed a part where the person, I put a mask on the guy, a very funny facial mask on the person, and it was done for a technical issue of something I needed to do, and over the years that I didn't need that anymore, but the laugh was so good with the mask, and it was worked within the material and the routine, the mask stayed in. So I'm at the point where I'm ready to put the mask on the guy, and I say in the routine we have a thing. The mask looks like a yellow helmet, like a football helmet. You don't get to see the whole mask at first. So I say we have there's a rule on stage. If there's fire on stage and you're non-union, kind of like that lifeboat drill, you have to wear a safety helmet. I have one here for you. If you be so kind, remove your cap, and I'll put this on for you. So this guy reaches up to take his cap off. And as he goes to take his cap off, I see something hit the stage. Something falls down next to him, falls down. Initially, I want to say what I thought was about the size of a deck of cards or a credit card, or about that size. Something falls, lands, and bounces on the stage on the guy's right side. And it takes about 2 seconds for me to realize it's his ear.
Ew.
That he had, that his right ear was a prosthetic ear. And when he went up to take his cap off, he bumped his ear. And his freaking ear has fallen off, okay? So, now you talk about things on stage that you go through, or you try to prepare yourself in life, and I don't know about you, but there was never a chapter in Tarbell on what to do when your volunteer's ear falls off, all right? So, and it bounced, and now...
And it bounced.
Oh, it bounced, and he doesn't know his ear's off, okay? So now this poor guy is standing on stage with like a hole on the side of his right head, all right? And then, now, everybody, if you divide the audience down the middle, at a certain point, everybody knows what's going on one side, can see this, and on the other half, everybody's clueless. So try not to mess with the flow. I get over, I walk behind him, I bend down, I pick the ear up. Now, there's no way you can bend down and pick the ear up without looking like you're bending down and picking a ear up, all right? So anyway, I bend down, pick the ear up, and I don't know, I guess I still think I'm being subtle, and I try to do what I call the maitre d' slip. You know, the little, like, if you have a beer, you're going to slip the maitre d', you know, so I'm trying to be subtle, and yet I'm in front of like 1,200 people, okay? But anyway, I go to hand him the thing, and I go, here. And I've got a wireless lavalier on, and I put my hand over the mic, but I'm not muted, but I put the hand over it so you can't really hear me, but I am muffled, okay? But you still hear me go, and I swear to God, he says very loudly, he says, what? Well, that's when I lost it, all right? I literally my legs about went down. I mean, I couldn't, it was... And he didn't mean it funny either. Well, he didn't say that to be funny. He just, what? And so the side of the audience that could see all that was actually happening, they are just about peeing themselves now. They are screaming. The other half of the audience doesn't have a clue. So at any rate, I slip him the ear, and he realizes it's his ear. And he puts it right back on, and he puts it up, hooks the thing back up on, and off we go. There we go. We're off and we're running. And now my brain is thinking, how do you recover from that? Okay, first of all, how do you go on? How do you recover that? There's still half an audience that's in pandemonium and half an audience that is clueless, and I'm not going to explain to half the audience that's clueless that this guy's ear just fell off, So, you just go on, you pick the pace, and that was the first bit in the show. So that was the way the show started that night. And at the end of the show, when it was all over and done with, I went out after the show to thank the guy. I didn't want him to feel embarrassed, and then find out that he's forget his last name. His first name was Malcolm, but he'd been on Oprah and a couple other shows. He and his girlfriend, who then became his wife, were out in British Columbia, in the mountains of British Columbia, in early spring, and a grizzly came at him came at her, and all he had was a Swiss Army knife. So he went after the grizzly. He took the grizzly with a Swiss Army knife, and the grizzly just about took his head off.
Oh my gosh.
And long story short, survived, and well known as a survivor. And not only did he survive the grizzly attack, but he survived the Craig Diamond show.
Well, I'm just thinking, you said that she's now his wife. She has to be, and she ought to serve him hand and foot. She took on a grizzly for her. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that's you could, yeah.
Golly.
It's good. Yeah, I didn't ask him. Did she say yes when he proposed?
Wow.
I didn't ask him that.
So we have about 6 minutes left, and I want to get to your new venture that you have going on. And I know we could go on. We've already done 50 minutes. We could go on for 10 days.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
But talk about your new venture. It's CraigDiamondEntertainment.com. Check him out there. He's on Facebook, Craig Diamond. But tell everybody what your new venture is.
Yeah. Well, the homepage for our new venture, it's theworldofillusion.com is the homepage for that, and that's a show that my buddy John Westford and I have been working on, a big stage show together for the past several years. We were plugged in to have our own theater in Arkansas. We were marketing with the bus tour industry, and just a whole bunch of things happened. Of course, all of a sudden this COVID thing took over, and that was the end of that. But we'd really connected to the theater market and that industry, the bus tour industry in particular. Then this COVID thing happens, the cruise ship thing goes down, and holy crap. And in the meantime, I had mentioned earlier, in May, I was on the cover of Vanish magazine, and most of that magazine was about virtual magic and the birth of virtual magic. And I wasn't ready to jump on that bandwagon. I didn't see it being part of that. As the summer progressed, John and I are having phone conversations about, moving forward with our projects, and then we suddenly realized that this whole virtual thing, it must be the way to go. So we decided in September to step off the cliff with that and put together a lot of high-tech equipment. We've been in a major learning curve since September with multiple high HD cameras, broadcast switching equipment, laying scores down, editing equipment, solving. It's just the learning curve has been incredible, but we've jumped on the virtual show bandwagon that they're doing. But our goal is to be able to be one of the guys, and that are putting out a very high-end product. We're very excited about John. My buddy John has just great sleight of hand, pure what I call raw, bare bones sleight of hand skill. I love his close-up work, and you've been around John and me, Wes. You know what we're like around people.
Yeah.
That's hard to relate to till you see it, and I don't mean it to sound any way other than it's just hard to relate to. So we're now going to, with this virtual thing, I've got a whole wall set up with a projector. So my virtual audience is going to be, I'm going to have an entire wall looking at my audience like I would, stage. I've got that set up now. So that excites me. I pulled out material, really super cool stuff that I won't even travel with because, it won't even leave my home, So this has allowed me to be able to pull out some of the stuff that, I normally don't get to do, and it's some of my most fun, really, some of my favorite stuff that normally I don't get to do. So that
Or only when someone comes over to visit. It's special.
Not even then. I'll tell you
Wow.
what. Not even then. This is you know what? So anyway, so John and I, we said, okay, let's get together. Now we came up with the name Virtually Impossible for the show. We found out we're not geniuses. We're not the only one that came up with that idea. All right. So apparently across the web, there's a bunch of magicians doing a show called Virtually Impossible. So we can't take credit for ingenuity for the name, but we're still using it. All right. So it's Virtually Impossible with Craig Diamond and John Westford. It's an hour-long virtual, live, interactive, close-up show. We bounce back and forth with each other. He will be live in Pennsylvania. I'm live in Florida. We have rehearsed for months. We switch back and forth with each other, and then also activate our audience at different times to be live and interactive. So really high-impact magic, great interaction. You know, the impromptu comedy type thing that both John and I jump on, so that element is there. The tech element is there. We've had musical scoring done for the show, so we're really excited about it. Our first thing is it's December 17th. That's Thursday, December 17th. It's 7 o'clock in the evening. It's a 1 hour, 7 o'clock. You can access this. Anybody can go to my Facebook page. Just go to Craig Diamond, public page, Craig Diamond Magician. And you can go to, we're advertising basically through the Facebook link. And it will be it's a pay-per-view, 1 ticket per household. And the link will be on there. So this is all public. So
and how much are tickets?
$20 for a household ticket.
Awesome.
So,
awesome.
Yep.
Perfect.
What a deal.
Perfect.
What a deal, Wes.
Well,
$20 for a household ticket. Wes, where did you get that?
Only at worldofillusion.com or Craig Diamond.
At worldofillusion.com or go to come to Craig Diamond Facebook. Go to www.craigdiamondentertainment.com and click down on that. Go to the World. We got to get okay? Get theworldofillusion.com. That's our homepage, and that's the cool one because you get to see the link of the big show as well as the link that then takes you to this virtual show.
Awesome. And I'm going to have John on next week, and he's going to talk about it some more too. So.
Oh, great! You're gonna love it.
We'll promote the heck out of it. You're promoted here. We love you.
Right,
we love you guys.
Hey, thank you, Wes.
Hey, stay on the line. I'm going to do some wrap up real quick, but you were awesome. Sure. Thank you for being here.
Wes.
So that is Craig Diamond. Craig Diamond, we will definitely have him back because I got a page of notes and we barely.
Yeah, I think only touched to the top.
Yeah,
the top 4.
We touched 2 subjects.
Yeah.
Anyway, check out wesisley.com. We have a virtual show as well coming up as a fundraiser. But check out Craig Diamond's first. His is first in line. Go buy tickets for his show. Mine's available on the Eventbrite page and my event page on my website. But check out Craig's first. His comes up first. Tonight on Jewel TV, episode 13, Round Hill Farm, will air at 7 p.m. Eastern. It's on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, the Jewel TV app, and a ton of other places. It's in over 100 million households. Just look for it. You'll find it. See you next week. Today's episode of the podcast is sponsored by Express Copy and Graphics. Mention promo code Wes Iseli to get 10% off. Their website is expresscopy.com. That's XPRESS-COPY.com. They do it all. Copies, banners, signs, vehicle wraps, promo items, practically anything you need printed, they can do it for you. These guys are great. Check them out. Check us out online at wesisley.com and patreon.com/Wes_Iseli for behind-the-scenes videos, blooper videos, never-before-seen footage, discounts on merchandise, magic trick tutorials, and more. That's Wes Iseli, spelled WESISELI.